My child, welcome home.
Hey guys, it's Matt here. I've said it before and I'll say it again. 2023 has been an amazing year for gamers so far. I'm not gonna go through the entire list of great games that have come out so far again, but I guess that all the videos I've made, and the amount of money I've spent, is a testament to the quality that has been delivered this year. But today I'm going to talk about a game that might be my absolute favorite so far. It's a story we're already familiar with for decades, one with many fans around the whole world, and in many ways this IP has been the founder of many things that have become the norm in its respective genre. Ladies and gentlemen, here is some gameplay and my first impressions of Lord of the Rings God. No, I'm kidding, of course. It's the System Shock Remake. System Shock originally released in 1994, and despite the original being barely playable because it aged so poorly, it was way ahead of its time in many aspects back in the day. However, it took me 3 more years to be born, and so I've never played it. Even though it's considered by many to be an absolute classic, it really didn't withstand the test of time. Which is why I'm not really going to compare this remake to the original, as well as that I want to delve deeper into that aspect in a future full-length review. For now, I'm just gonna give you my first impressions. The System Shock Remake follows the story of a nameless protagonist simply known as the Hacker. While going through one of his hacking shenanigans, he gets caught and eventually ends up on the medical bay of a space station called the Citadel.
Turn around! Now!
Here he finds out that the entire space station has been taken over by a rogue AI known as Shodan. Shodan took full control over Citadel Station and made sure the entire crew was either killed, mutated, or transformed into cyborgs. From this station, Shodan is preparing to destroy Earth, and so it's up to the Hacker to stop all of that.
We hope you have a pleasant stay on Citadel Station.
It's your typical survival horror story setup, and as far as I've heard about it, the story pretty much completely remains the same from the original. Which is kind of logical since the developers went for an incredibly faithful recreation of the 1994 game. Because of that, the first thing you'll probably notice is the incredibly cool art style. I apparently seem to be having a thing for retro-inspired video games lately, and the System Shock Remake might be one of the best examples of that. We've seen this sort of style implemented in last week's video, where pixelated 2D sprites run around in pixelated 3D environments, but in this game everything is 3D, but the textures on top of these 3D models are incredibly blocky, giving it a similar retro-inspired aesthetic and keeping it very faithful to the original. It instantly made me think of Doom Eternal, where 3D models of the monsters you'll encounter were kept incredibly faithful to the original artwork. Even the environments look and feel a lot more like 3D renditions of those cramped corridors from the 90s, instead of something more open like in, for example, Dead Space. Combine that with completely overhauled lighting and animations and you'll have a game that definitely looks like it belongs in 2023, but pretty much pays homage to the 90s. Remaking a 30-year-old game that really isn't playable anymore nowadays, you'd expect to see a lot of differences in gameplay and mechanics, but instead the developers opted to stay as faithful as possible in that aspect as well. That can honestly be seen as both a blessing and a curse. A blessing first and foremost because the original System Shock was so ahead of its time, influencing pretty much every other story-based action game that came after. If you've played games like Resident Evil, Metal Gear Solid, Half-Life, or of course BioShock, this is immediately going to feel familiar, because guess where those games got their inspiration from? Nowadays, mechanics and features of this genre, like storytelling, item management, puzzle solving and combat, have pretty much all been perfected over the past 30 years, and in that aspect this remake isn't as mind-blowing as the original was back then. But these aspects are at least implemented very well, and there are still some welcome features from the original that make a return and aren't seen as much in more recent games. The modular difficulty system directly comes to mind, in which you can fine-tune aspects of the game separately to your own liking, instead of just choosing easy, normal or hard. But staying this faithful to the original can also be seen as a curse in many ways. I'm not overreacting when I say that this game is hard as balls. If you've grown fond of the hand-holding that pretty much every game does nowadays, From Software games not included obviously, this game will take your brain, put it in a blender, combine it with milk and eggs, put it in the oven for half an hour and bake a nice little cake out of it. I thought to myself, let's put all the difficulty meters halfway, so I do get a challenge, but don't get my ass handed to me. Well, guess what? After an hour or so, my doorbell rang and there was the game, standing in my doorway, handing my ass to me.
It's too late.
This game doesn't give you any waypoints, meaning you have to find out everything by yourself using environmental storytelling, audio logs, written messages and interactable items. Remember those corridors I've just talked about? Well, despite having a minimap, you will get lost here. That's because it looks like this, it doesn't tell you where to go, and the item you've just picked up potentially has to be used not here, but on one of the other 13 levels. Every level has a security level which has to be brought back to 0%. But anytime before that, Shodan will take every single opportunity she has to surprise you with new enemies. You'll die over and over again because the cyborgs are pretty much the exact opposite of stormtroopers, and this walking laser turret thingy makes me think of all the music Joji brought out in the past 5 years. What I mean is that both of them never miss. There isn't a lot of healing items available either, let alone that your typical Resident Evil item management system doesn't give you that much room to store everything in. So of course you die, and that's the moment when you realize that the game is very scarce with its autosaves. And so the last half hour of gameplay has now been lost because you forgot that back in the 90s you had to manually save around every fucking corner. Honestly, it takes some getting used to all these game mechanics, of which some haven't seen the light of day for 3 decades. And yes, I did call it a curse, but a curse is not the same as a flaw. It's easy to see that this game definitely isn't for everyone. Apart from the fact that games undoubtedly were just a bit more difficult in the olden days, this sort of game actively works against you and involves a whole lot of dying, respawning, backtracking, puzzling, and did I mention dying already? But with some determination and a huge pile of old plates positioned next to your computer that you can throw against the wall to cool down, you should continue playing. Because when you finally get the hang of things, find those restoration bays so you don't constantly have to manually save all the time, realize which weapons are effective against which enemies, get familiar with the layout of these corridors and upgrade your arsenal as well as your abilities, then you might just suddenly realize that you've been smiling throughout this whole ordeal. The System Shock Remake is a very unforgiving game. So far I haven't even made it halfway through it because you're constantly looking for scraps, upgrades and the next piece of hardware you need in order to progress the story. While I can absolutely understand that the lack of handholding will scare off some players, it is so rewarding to then realize that whatever it is you did to progress the story, you did that without any help. Many of the mechanics you'll encounter in this game have become staples of the story-based action genre, and in this game they are seamlessly combined with some mechanics that are rarely seen in games, as well as that other mechanics haven't been seen for so long they almost feel like something new as well. In combination with its faithfulness to the original, its great art style and its fun combat and variety in unique weapons, this game has been frustrating but also rewarding. Whether its unforgiving nature and all-round difficulty will be a deal breaker in the long run remains to be seen, but my first impressions on the System Shock Remake are incredibly positive. Thanks for watching. As always, I really hope you enjoyed this video. Maybe it can help you to decide whether you're going to buy it or not, or maybe you already bought it and wonder what other people think of it so far. Either way, let me know in the comments, especially when I was wrong about something or if you want to tell me that I suck at gaming, because lately that has been great for my videos being picked up by the algorithm. But for now, thanks for all the support on my videos so far, and I hope to see you in the next one. Bye!